Have you ever been interviewed for a job by someone who seemed to just be going through the motions, moving through pre-written lists of questions without showing any signs of listening to your answers? The same sort of thing can happen when journalists interview sources. In this video, we'll talk about how to develop thoughtful questions mid-interview with information gathering and flow in mind. Nothing is worse than a reporter who joylessly moves from first to last question. It's supposed to be a conversation, not a military maneuver. The best conversations happen when all parties are listening and letting the banter flow naturally. And it's the same thing in news interviews. I know we were just talking about crafting and organizing questions in advance, but sometimes, even with an experienced interviewer, the best questions come to mind during the interview. These impromptu questions, as I call them, arise because there's no way of knowing for sure what your subject will say. Sometimes their answers can be surprising and require you to either temporarily veer off from your planned queries or abandon the list altogether. So while you should prepare a list of questions, you shouldn't feel like you're obligated to ask them in that order or any other. Your list is a guide, not a legally binding contract. Letting the conversation take shape as it happens is important. It helps the subject feel at ease, which means that they're more likely to provide meaningful, interesting answers. In order to create that conversational tone, you're going to need to do more than just take notes during the interview. You're going to need to actually listen to the subject's answers and think about their meaning. Do any additional questions spring to mind? The same thoughts will probably occur to readers too. That was really interesting. I do have a few more questions I'd like to ask about X. That kind of roadmap banter between questions can help the subject stay in sync with you, as it lets them know where you're heading conversationally speaking. Just be sure not to interrupt your subject mid-answer, unless you really need them to focus or show them you're in charge. Otherwise, wait until they finish speaking, then pause some more, and then ask your impromptu question. Why pause? It's a technique steeped in psychology. Most people need to fill a silence. If you pause after your subject finishes talking, they'll likely start talking again, often offering something that they wouldn't have otherwise revealed. With a contentious source, it's like a game of chicken. Who can stay silent longer? The loser might just reveal a real scoop. I recommend pausing whenever you can. Try it with a friend this week and see what happens. I bet they'll fill that silence in just a second or two. So let's review. To create a conversation while you're interviewing, go with the flow. Don't be too married to your list of questions. To do that, you'll need to listen to what your source is saying, but avoid interrupting them at all costs unless it's absolutely essential to get control of the interview again. And remember to pause whenever you can, because that's how sometimes you get the best answers.